Welcome back to another episode of Mind Your Heart.
Welcome back. Hi.
Today we have another really special guest. Jaden is going to be joining us today on Mind Your Heart, and I am so excited to have her. We actually mentioned her a couple times in the previous episode. So if you listen to our last episode of Mind Your Heart with Caroline, then you have a little sneak peek of an idea of Jaden coming on. So Jaden and I actually met virtually before I made the decision to go to Bali. She was the person that basically like solidified it for me. That I was like, yep, I'm going to Bali. Like, this is it. She was the only person that I talked to like face to face on a Zoom before I got there. So everybody else at the retreat, I did not know. So anyways, Jaden, she is just so knowledgeable when it comes to cyclical living. So I'm really, really excited to have her talk a little bit about like menstrual cycles and like when it comes to what that looks like in all different stages of life. So she is a retreat host, obviously. She works as a menstrual cycle coach, and she's also a yoga teacher. She helps women understand their menstrual cycle and live cyclically. Jaden is passionate about empowering women by showing them the beautiful strengths their cycle holds and how to heal hormonal imbalances through simple lifestyle changes. She's also passionate about travel and living a life of freedom and adventure, which is such a good way to describe her because she's currently in Australia right now. When we were in Bali, I remember her being like, yeah, I'm just going to move to Australia. And I was like,
I love
so
that.
cool. Yeah. And I was like, so like, what's the plan? She was like, there's no plan. Like, I have literally no plan. I don't know where I'm going to live. Like, I bought the one-way ticket and
yes, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. So, and she's done that with, I think, a couple other times before. And she's like, she's had some really cool experiences. So excited to have Jaden on today.
Yeah, me too. I'm very, really fascinated by that. Also, Australia was the place that I have always wanted to go to Australia. And it's on when I was a kid and we would do those silly, what are those things? It was like cootie catchers, is that what it's called? The little you like flip, and then they have to peel up you don't know what I'm talking about? They have to peel up so you like move your hands back and forth and it's like switches up the numbers and then they choose a color and then you do that and then choose a number or whatever and you count 4 times and then they peel it up and it's
yeah. Where it's like the I know what you're talking about. Yes, it's the little paper thing that has like the 4 different corners and
yeah. So Australia used to be my pick, but I was like, where do you want to live? Australia. I always say Australia. It's probably because of Hugh Jackman though. Except for when I was 10, I didn't know that.
Subliminally, you did.
Yes, subliminally. I can't even say that.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys? It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm glad we figured out the time.
I know. It's honestly, I've had that like working online time zone things all the time. So it's just like, yep, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for waking up early and being here with us.
Yes. Thank you so much. You're in Australia, right? In Australia?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think I love that. I think that's so cool. Emily was telling me that you were like, I'm going to go to Australia and I don't have a plan. I'm just going to Australia. And I'm like, I love this. So that's so cool.
Yeah, it is definitely an adventure, an experience, and it's super exciting at times. And then other times it's like the most stressful thing. And like, what actually am I doing?
Yeah. No, you're like
emotions.
allowing yourself to just follow your instinct or, let's see what's next. I think that's really cool. Emily, I think we should just start.
Okay.
Because I think this is interesting.
We already did a little intro for you, Jaden. So like,
okay, awesome.
cool. Yeah. Well,
So I want to say one really quick thing because I want to finish that thought about Australia. So there was a book, I think it's called The Untethered Soul. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so he does this like almost like an experiment where he just says yes to everything that
Yeah.
comes up. Yeah. Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. And that made me think of that. I was like, oh, and all these, things come up in his life and he does all these different things. But I just think that, I don't know, I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
haven't
Thank
you
you.
done
I
that
remember.
before, Jaden?
Yeah, I did that after I graduated from university, I moved
Okay.
to New Zealand,
Yeah.
and didn't know anyone. And that was different than coming to Australia a little bit because I just had no expectations or no idea what I was doing. So it almost felt like I was able to like drop into that flow state and allow things and people, the right situations to come to me. And then it's been interesting coming to Australia because I have this whole load of expectations because everyone's told me how much I'd love it. I've been like thinking about it and it's been on my radar for the last 2 years. And now I have an online business. So it's almost felt like I've brought more baggage as I've come
Mm.
here. And it's caused so much more resistance and things
Oh,
that haven't been flowing really the first few months that I've been here. And so that's been like and I could feel that resistance and I
yeah.
knew that that was going to be a block. But you kind of have to just like let it play out.
Yeah.
And and I went home for a month, saw family, reset, and
Mm.
had this like aha moment of I actually love where I'm from, and it's okay if I go home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before it was
Yeah.
like going home's not an option because you're living this adventurous life and you love it more over in the southern hemisphere and like
Mm.
this kind of story I created. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I went home and I was like, actually, I'm excited to move home and to
Yeah.
be a little bit more grounded in the things that I do and the people. Like I have a network and a community
Yeah.
already built in home, and that is actually so beautiful to have. So coming back, I have still 7 months on my visa, and I'm like, I just need to embrace this experience for what it is and have more fun and see more places and be working in my passion actually, and not taking like scarcity jobs or in that scarcity mindset of
Yes.
time and whatnot.
Oh,
So
that is so helpful.
feels
Yes.
good.
Yes.
The second round,
Yeah.
I feel lighter.
Oh
Yeah.
my
That's
goodness.
so
Yeah.
good.
That's
I
really good.
also like, I can relate to you when you're like,
Yeah.
the like going home thing. It's like, you can't do that because I, after I graduated high school, I went and I was like a camp counselor. And then this is like where I like met Jake and all that stuff. But I was
Yeah.
like, I am moving to New York. Like, I am moving to New York. I'm getting out of this small little town of Parrish and like, I'm going to do all these crazy things and whatever. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I knew where I was going to live. Like, I was like, I'll figure it out. And after I graduated and like, I was like, out of being a counselor and I was in love with Jake, I
Yeah.
went to New York and I was like, I do not want to live here. I was like, I want to be home so bad. I miss my mom. I remember calling you mom. Like I was in a Barnes and Noble and I was like, I don't think I can live in New York. And like, it's just too far. Like I have a community of people, but I had made up this thing in my head of like, well, if I stay in Parrish, Florida, then I like haven't like done these things. And
Mm.
then like as I have like grown, I'm like, I actually really love living in Florida. And like I think I would want to start a family in Florida. And I'm like, but I want to travel and like that those two things can exist at the same time. So I think it's
Yeah.
really cool that you went home and like had that peace.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful experience too. And you can go home and still have the adventurous, like fill that seeking void of, yeah,
Hmm.
like you said, travel, coming to a retreat. Like that stuff is so, so exciting to do at our age,
Yeah,
any
for
age,
sure.
all the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
doing. I've traveled more in the last 10 years than I definitely ever have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just a lot. It's been wonderful. It's been beautiful. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am so excited to have you, Jaden, to talk like about I just feel like you have so much knowledge about like cyclical living, and I think it has just like completely changed. I mean, it's changed me since we were in Bali. I was telling Jaden, how when we were in Bali, she like was like, okay, I have this like cycle tracker, like you're gonna do it on paper. Like I know that sounds crazy because we've got all these apps. And in my head, then I was like, okay, like, yeah, I'll try it. Like, I'll try anything. I had very irregular, heavy, uncomfortable periods. And ever since I've been home, like, literally, I have all of my cycle trackers, like, right
I
here.
love that so much.
And it is like a religious thing that I do every
Yeah.
morning. Like, track my cycle on my cycle tracker that way. And it's just been wild to see my cycle evolve and just being in tune with it, how much that changes it. So I would love for you to like share just kind of like your experience of how you got into this, like how you've been
Yeah.
able to like grow and like learn and like how it's come from experiences from you as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, firstly, nothing makes me more excited than hearing that people are cycle tracking and the changes and the difference that they felt in their cycles. So, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, my experience started when I was very young. I was put on birth control at a very young age. I was put on the insulin on the bar in my arm, and I spotted and bled every day for 9 months.
Oh,
And I really, the gynecologist that I went to go see, she was very much in her masculine energy. And I feel like I was put on birth control out of fear and out
yeah.
of easy, like that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
And I knew it didn't feel right. And after she told me that spotting can be very common with this type of birth control. So after 3 months, I was still spotting. I went back to her. She was like, "Oh, I would wait maybe a few more months. That's kind of the next phase of women that still experience that spotting that long." So again, 3 months went by, went back, still she didn't take it out. So
Oh,
after 9 months of spotting almost every day, from can't remember if I was I'm pretty sure I was 13, or
wow.
14. I was like about to cut it out myself and
Yeah.
went back and got it out. And this was at a time of I never fully had a regular cycle before I was even put on birth control. My
Hmm.
cycles were like, quite long still, which is super
Yeah.
normal when you start having your
Hmm.
periods. It takes your body a while to learn that
To
natural rhythm.
adjust. How old were you
Yeah.
when you got your period?
I think I was 12.
12. Okay. So, I mean, so like it just a little while and then it automatically
Yeah.
let's put you on birth control. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And this was also at a time where I was in a 5-year relationship from middle school all through high school.
Mm.
And this is a time where you're coming into your body, you're learning
Yeah.
about your body, you're learning about boys and this whole human experience. And I felt disgusting in my body because I was spotting every day and
Yeah.
I didn't know what was happening. And it felt like this foreign object in my body. So
Yeah.
that I can trace back I didn't realize that was happening then, but looking back, I'm like, that is what started a big disconnection in
Mm.
my body and a big mistrust in my body. After I got that out, I was on the pill and I kind of came in and out of that often because it just, again, didn't feel right.
Hmm.
I wasn't one of those girls that was like excited to be on the pill
Yeah.
Yeah.
and want to take it, religiously.
Yeah.
Um, and as I then went to college, I was like, I feel like I completely stopped taking it. And then I just never got my period back. So I actually lost my period for 6 years when I
Wow.
wasn't on birth control. But it was actually most of my teen life, that I didn't have a regular period. Because when you're on the pill, it's not your natural bleed, it's a fake period. So I never really had a natural cycle. And that during college, those days, I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to have a period. And so that time I didn't really care, but there was definitely this inkling inside me that was saying that that's not normal. And it was actually my dad that told me, and I so vividly remember this, him being like, well, if you don't have a period, you can't have kids. And do you want to have kids? And that is what like really like stuck for me. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I do. And having like a male perspective, I don't know why a father, like my father saying that really clicked for me. And so all this time, though, my biggest passion is health and wellness and fitness and nutrition. Like I've always been super into that. So all of these years, like I've been doing my own research, going down rabbit holes of trying to be the healthiest that I can be. And at the same time is when I developed an unhealthy obsession with nutrition and with exercise, because I would do so much research that I would know exactly how many calories are in each food and exactly what it's doing to my body. And so it became very unhealthy. And that disconnect that developed at that young age had turned into wanting to seek love by having the perfect body and by having the six-pack abs and being the fittest and that high, like I'm also was quite a high achiever and so all of these things, and then not having a period, not being connected to my feminine energy, developed into a full-blown eating disorder, exercise addiction. I was doing HIIT training every single day. And my mind I remember like my planner was like scheduled out to the hour. And, through those college days, high stress, also drinking alcohol, like a full recipe for not having your period. And it's like, it's beautiful looking back because it's like my body it was in survival mode, taking care of me. Yeah. Of course, it's not going to grow a baby. So we're going to just shut the reproductive system off. And that's what happens in women that have lost their period or it's super irregular. Often it's from stress, and stress can come in many different forms. And it's our body just being like, we're not safe enough right now to have a baby. So we're just going to put a pause on the reproductive system and focus on digesting and moving. I experienced all of that during college and was just super numb. I don't think I really ever cried. I was just like this, like happy. I remember like my college days I really enjoyed, but I just didn't have a lot of emotions and nothing really bothered me and nothing really too much excited me. And so it was my last year and I knew that it was this intuitive calling that I needed an adventure. I needed to change my environment. A couple of different friends had told me about New Zealand and getting a holiday work visa there, which I'd never heard of. And when they told me that, it was something like, my intuition was like, yes, we're doing that. Yes. And within a month, I had planned it and left to New Zealand. And that was changing my whole environment is what really allowed me to go deeper and initiate that deeper self-discovery. And so then COVID happened. I ended up becoming a yoga teacher, and then I hired my own menstrual cycle coach. I was following this woman who I listened to all of her podcasts, learned so much from her. She was a menstrual cycle coach. And so it was this also knowing of I deserve support through this. Yeah. And I am inviting others to help me because I can't do this myself anymore. Yeah. And that's when I got it back regularly and set off this journey of wanting to be that support for other women as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's really an unbelievable story. And also speaks to, I don't know. It just, I'm listening and I'm thinking, actually my period is over. I'm in the I'm moved beyond, or past or whatever, which is not, I don't think we talk about that. I don't think we talk about what menopause looks like, what that looks like as far as hormonally, just a lot of it. But when you were saying that, even about Like I hated taking birth control pills. It made me so bloated and so uncomfortable
Yeah.
with my own body. And I felt angry. Like I was really easily angered. And when I stopped taking it, I took it for 10 years and then I stopped taking it to get pregnant with Emily. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually impacting my mood as well. It isn't just, and I actually had a very regular cycle before I started taking
Mm.
it. I did start taking it for, not to have a baby.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was always like every 28 days at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it was almost like that for me.
Yeah.
It went back to being normal. It was like off and on, sometimes really heavy and long, lasted long, but it was still very like regular. But I'm like, I'm never taking this again because it makes me feel so bad. And so I never did. I never took it again. And I didn't do any hormone replacement as an older person as well
Yeah.
because I was so worried about what had happened when I took the pill. But then, you're like, well, now you've got osteopenia and you also have
Yeah.
dry skin and your hair and everything else about your body is like, so
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. So I feel like I have a million questions for you as far as, I mean, I don't even know if you ever talk about that. Like, do we still go through cycles like when you're at postmenopause? Like, what does that look like at different stages of your life? Like, I feel like I have a million questions.
Yeah, there's so much within that as well. I've been inspired to learn more about it as my mom she's in menopause now, but she really struggled through perimenopause.
Mhm.
And so I've been a lot more interested in that. And yes, so many women that have in perimenopause or have gone through menopause
Mhm.
ask those same exact questions, and it's really frustrating. And so, what's hormonally happening as you enter perimenopause and menopause is you're basically kind of stuck in that luteal phase. So that
Mhm.
phase after we ovulate and our hormones, you're just a lot more neutral. And so we're not having the rise of estrogen and then the
Uh-huh.
fall of it and the rise of progesterone and then the fall of it. And so that's what then causes a lot of the hot flashes, the change
Mhm.
in weight, the hair, the skin, everything. Your body you're having a new bodily experience. And all of those symptoms are common,
Mhm.
but not necessarily normal and not what we want women to just expect that that's what they're going to have to go through as they
Yeah.
go through perimenopause and menopause. Um, I believe that there's so many, and this is the same conversation if we're talking about menopause or if we're talking about someone that is having a natural cycle, but with all of those similar symptoms,
Mhm.
is there's so many lifestyle things that we can do to support those hormones and to limit how drastic we're feeling those symptoms.
Mm.
So we could probably do a whole podcast on perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, so many women, it's so frustrating and it sounds so frustrating. And that's why I think
Yeah,
as
perimenopause was
early,
was much worse. I mean, than
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I don't have the hot flashes anymore, so thank goodness. And
hmm
I felt like killing people. Like I was just so
yeah,
mad all the time. Yeah, it was. I mean, I got
yeah,
divorced. I could change jobs. It was a brutal time for sure. I feel like a different
yeah,
person now. So I
yeah,
definitely feel more level. This is the most level I've ever been in my life because I was very up and down pretty much since childhood.
yeah,
But I just sometimes even wonder, do you still kind of go through like a cycle even though your hormones yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so just quickly, like that's just proof of how much our hormones dictate
Yeah.
our mood. And that, like, just that
Yeah.
is so important to realize. But yes, so everyone is a cyclical being. So we all go through cycles. Men go through 24-hour hormonal cycle. Women in our earlier years go through a 28-day cycle. And women in menopause, you are still cyclical. So we still have rises and falls of different hormones and a little bit of our, estrogen and progesterone. It's just not following the same cycle that it would if we were in our childbearing years. But most importantly, body still goes through these rhythms and we can still live cyclically. And this is where I bring in the whole conversation of tracking with the moon. And this is what, so I actually worked with my mom for a few months as she was going through menopause, to track with the moon, and she cycle tracks and stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And as she's entered this new phase of life, she's discovered so much more about her body that she didn't know before. And so the kind of a brief explanation and intro into moon tracking is the moon goes through a 29.5 day cycle. And the average menstrual cycle is 28-ish days. The moon has 4 phases that it goes through. We have 4 phases that we go through. And it's that darkness, the new moon, would replicate our menstrual phase. So it's that complete darkness. It's that void period, that release. And then more light comes into the sky, and that mimics our follicular phase, that energy, that estrogen rising, growing those follicles. And then it's a full moon, and that's ovulation time. So you can kind of think of, like, we always hear the stories of, oh, it's a full moon, the hospital's going crazy, everyone's going crazy.
Yeah.
And it's that universal energy is a lot just like amplified and stronger. And so that mimics our ovulatory phase, when we're a lot like, that's our peak hormone phase. So we're out there and we're like, that's where we want to reproduce, call in a mate, because our egg is ready to go. And then, and then it gets, so after the new moon, we go into the waning moon, and the sky starts to get darker. And that mimics our luteal phase, as we're starting to come down from the high and starting to kind of wrap things up. And if we think about how, like, the moon controls the tide of our the entire earth, and we're made of 70% water, of course it's going to have a huge impact on our body. And so when it comes to menopause and thinking about this, I think it's so important to keep that feminine cycle, and to keep that like growing and releasing, that coming up and coming down, because each new cycle of the moon, of your own cycle, is an opportunity to grow and for new beginnings, and then to wrap things up and release. And so that's instinctual in our bodies.
I really love that. That makes so much sense to me. That is like, I feel like I'm like, yes, that no wonder I feel that way, like intuitively, like I'm like, gearing up, and then it feels like really, and then it's like, okay, step back. I don't know. Like, I understand what you're saying. I think that's so interesting. Sorry, Emily. No. I'm not giving you any chance to even talk.
No, I think that this is such an important conversation. I'm like, keep going.
And what you said of like intuitively you get that is because that wisdom is within us. And as we tap more into our cycle, that wisdom that women have had for years and years and years start to come out. I mean, women used to all bleed together, and they would bleed together to support their, like, that was part of their village. That was part of the tribe, is to go through this. And it matched with the masculine of the hunting and the gathering. And so, and the different seasons they went through. So that's where we still are. And we have so much going on in our worlds today that it's a lot to come back to that.
No, definitely. So you recommend like still tracking to the moon? Like, okay. Yeah. I want to learn more about that. I'm sure you have like resources and things to check out, but I also am curious, like some of the things that you said that you can do, like a natural behaviors, things that you can change that help with those types of things. I want to hear more about that too.
So I'm going to just share like the biggest ones that I recommend for all women. But then there's lots of, depending on the person, it can be so individualized and so specific to your unique life. The biggest thing is addressing stress. So stress in the form of exercise, emotional stress, all of that. For my experience, the HIIT training is not made for women. HIIT is made for males. And if you're doing that all the time, then you're stressing out your body. And you're actually, especially in that luteal phase, in the menstrual phase, so before you bleed and on your bleed, your body is wanting rest and it's going more into that like survival mode. And so if you're having a lot of stress, let's just talk about stress in general, our body is turning on fat storage. If we're not eating enough or if we're exercising too much, and if we're mentally and emotionally stressed, our body is going to hold on to fat because it thinks it's in survival mode.
Yeah.
And it's also going to show a lot of the other symptoms that we're experiencing. So stress is the number one thing to address, and things to help with that is how we eat, how we move. Yoga, meditation has changed and saved my life, I would say. And I'll be in like a yin class and start to feel my stomach just like readjust and settle, and these muscles readjust and settle. And you don't get that in a normal yoga class. You don't get that in a different workout. It's really like our body rarely gets that time to fully tap into that yin zone and relax and heal. So giving our body time to heal is really important. So then that leads to, are we getting enough sleep? Sleep is so important for women, getting 8 hours at least of deep sleep. And then there's all the lifestyle habits and things we could talk about that promote healthy sleep that we could talk about later. But that's a big one. The other thing is making sure that we are getting enough calories and of all of the vitamins and nutrients that our cycle needs. So especially a big lifestyle change that I recommend for all women is getting 25 to 35, preferably 35 grams of protein first thing in the morning. And a lot of women, this could even lead into the conversation of fasting and intermittent fasting. If you're dealing with a slew of symptoms and you have an irregular cycle, don't fast. Don't do HIIT training. Skip that until your body is in a healthier place. For women in menopause, there is more benefits of fasting. So that just asterisk note on that. But eating a big enough savory breakfast in the morning that has enough protein, that has enough fat so you're not going into a blood sugar spike first thing in the morning. And that leads into the whole other conversation. And another huge thing I recommend is to learn about blood sugar balancing, because that is when we're eating lots of sugar and just that, if we're just having carbs, or if we're just even having coffee first thing in the morning, our body goes into this spike and this almost nervous zone of like, I need to do something with all this glucose that I just took in. And then it leads to a huge crash. And so that's why a lot of women will feel, men and women, blood sugar balancing is for both genders, very important. That's why a lot of people will feel hungry or tired after they just ate. Or that 3 or 4 o'clock time is because we started our day on an empty stomach and caffeine. And so our body went into overdrive first thing, and now it's like needs rest. So learning about blood sugar balancing, and there's a million really good resources. I recommend learning from the Glucose Goddess. Just listen to a couple of her podcasts, look at her Instagram page. She has so many amazing tips. And she's not about, don't eat the cake. It's about, if you are going to have the cake, do these things before and after. So go for a walk after, have apple cider vinegar or a green salad before, so your body doesn't have those big spikes. And that's what's so important, is that we're not restricting ourselves. We're not cutting things out. We're actually bringing in more healthy habits around that.
Yeah, that's that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then number one thing before all of that is I say cycle track, because that's the intro and the opportunity to any excitement to start learning about yourself and noticing what symptoms are showing up, which habits are actually working and what isn't.
Yeah, it is honestly so cool just to see like the change in your body when you do start cycle tracking. Like it sounds like it's like, oh, you're gonna track it and nothing's gonna change, but it does. Like it genuinely does. Like I remember like when we met in Bali, I at that point, like my cycles were like 42 days long. And that was like kind of average. Sometimes it would be longer, sometimes it would be shorter. It was very inconsistent and uncomfortable. And when I got home and I started consistently tracking, like I haven't had a cycle longer than 32 days, like since then.
Wow.
And that's like huge for me because like and I also like every time I've had my cycle I haven't bled for more than 5 days. I used to bleed for like 8 or 9 days and it would be so rough. Like I'm like it's so long that I'm like in the cycle and I'm like bleeding for like 2 weeks it felt like. So it's crazy how just like that small change that you can make that doesn't take very long. Like it's like maybe a couple of minutes every day is already going to shift things for you. And even like learning about the blood sugar balancing stuff. Like I started working with Katie like when I came home from the retreat, and Katie is like expert in like gut health and she was like teaching me about that kind of stuff and I like my number one thing was like I was always so tired. I'm just like always tired. And I'm like I'm only 24. Like why am I tired all the time? And she's like, well, like you're starting your day like with like your blood sugar just like going straight up and like you're not getting enough protein. And one of the things I did when I was working with her was I basically ate like lunch for breakfast and then like I would have like a breakfast for kind of like dinner. And it made a huge difference. I was like, oh, wow, like I feel so much better. Like I feel like I can get through the day like without feeling like I like need to like fall over and fall asleep. Like it's just crazy how some of those things like we're not taught that on like a day to day. Like we're not taught that in school. Like it's something you basically, especially as a woman, like you have to learn through going through something shitty, which like is so frustrating to me and like is something that I know so many women are like, I'm struggling with this and this, and they'll go to a doctor and they're like, well, it's normal. Like, it's not normal. Like, we're just not learning about what we can do to make this better and to prevent the main problem instead of just like throwing pills and stuff at the symptoms that you get from it. So yeah, I just went on a real rampage there, but it just really gets me amped.
It's so important because that like what you've experienced, what you're experiencing is 90% of women at some point in their life.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so you start with the cycle tracking. Everyone does. Yeah.
And it's kind of like the secret, the depth behind of like that. And so I at retreat, and what I recommend for all women is to use a written cycle tracker. Because like Emily said, there's so many amazing apps out there and they are getting better every single day, which is exciting. And I believe using a written cycle tracker is an important invitation to really like more deeply check in with yourself. And I just have on the prompt, like, how do you feel? And so what it really is it's an invitation to tap into your intuition.
This is what it looks like.
That, Emily. It's to actually like tune in and realize what emotions, what physical things you can include what you did that day or like things that are significant on there. But what it really is it's an opportunity to check in with yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not even about the habits right away. It's just that moment of checking in with yourself because that's something that we skip every day a lot of times in the busy world.
No, for sure. I agree. And also I actually think it's really smart to do it on paper.
Yes.
With where we are kind of in the world, at least in America, and the things that are going on. Like we don't need everyone to know our cycle. So
it's the most intimate thing to us. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I mean, it doesn't need to be regulated or just, observed by other people. And so I think having it on paper is being smart.
Yeah.
I won't thinking.
No, sorry. There's just so much we can talk about. And the other like main reason that is exactly leading into what you said is we give our power away every
Yeah.
day to our phones, to Google, to these like technology, you know?
Yeah.
And so going back to our innate wisdom, we've kind of lost touch with that. And the apps will give you prompts or like, this is how you, oh, you're on day 24. These are symptoms that you're probably feeling, or this is how you're probably feeling. And it gives you a list of symptoms to track, it can be helpful when you don't know exactly what to notice at first. But after that, I think it's causing a disconnect of what you're actually experiencing, because I teach cyclical living, so syncing your life, your exercise, your movement, how you spend your energy, and the awareness of the 4 different phases of our cycle. And so I teach that, and I think it's super important. It's what helped me get my period back. The big asterisk with that is it's general. It's generalized. And you could be feeling completely different than someone else on their day 24, or you could have just lost a family member or lost your job or just had the most exciting thing in your life happen. And that's going to impact our hormones and our mood and our body just as much. So that's why cycle tracking is your personalized. It's kind of like your journal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. And I love that.
Yeah. And even like, I think like because I used to use the apps, I was like, all right, I'll try all the different apps that there are. And like you're saying, like those symptoms that they give you, you kind of just go through and tick them off, like as like, okay, I experienced this. But it is a different sense of like knowing yourself. And kind of like what we were talking about with Caroline is like it's bringing that awareness to what you're experiencing on your own. Like you are truly being aware of that without something having to tell you what you're feeling. Like you're able to acknowledge it and like be like, this is what I'm feeling. And like one thing that I have started doing like with mine is that like at the end of the month, like I go through and like I highlight like where I've said like I'm tired and like where I've said like that I'm like really happy or like excited or joyful. And like over like the months, like the tiredness highlight has like gone down. Hi, Kobe.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, cute.
And the happiness and excitement and like energy has gone up. So like there's just different things that you can notice when you're doing it, when a human who knows yourself better than anyone is tracking it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's a really
love
good
that.
point. Yeah. That's so helpful. Okay, so where can people find you? Like where can they get more information about this? Can they like where do I find you?
Yes. Yeah. So my business is called Find Your Flow, and that's where I support women through one-on-one. And I work with women for like 3 to 6 months, or I'm soon to be launching a group coaching program for 6 weeks starting November 1st. And then also out of Find Your Flow is where I run retreats with my friend Caroline, who you'll hear on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
And so Find Your Flow .space is my website on Instagram. If you just search Find Your Flow there, and it's like find period flow period.
And I'll have it linked below.
That's not right.
So yeah,
Emily will get that for you. So my Instagram and website is the best way to find me.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Do you want to do the lightning round, Em?
Yeah. So we have just 3 questions for you that are like our lightning round questions. Are a little more like fun and not on topic. So first one is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
If I'm alone, probably like a 6. If I'm with other people, a 9.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's funny.
That's really honest grading of yourself.
Don't ask me why.
Okay. That's funny. Okay. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Oh,
Oh,
very cute.
Absolutely.
Oh,
What is the movie with the soccer?
the soccer
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I have no idea.
movie with the wait, now I have to like
And
look
Amanda
up.
Bynes?
Oh,
Oh,
uh,
We would watch that every sleepover when I was a kid
that
with
is
my
so funny.
friends. Oh my gosh, that would drive me crazy. But yes, Channing
The
Tatum hands down.
Channing Tatum. That's funny. All right.
Still probably is.
I know, I'm like
So,
trying
what
to
would you tell yourself, your 18-year-old, if you could talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give her?
I would tell her to take a really long, deep exhale. And I would tell her that the present moment is the most important moment. And thinking about what you should be doing or what time you're going to wake up tomorrow or these big dreams and life vision can wait and that it's all going to work out. And I would tell her how beautiful her body is and
Mm.
how capable it is and how it can grow, how it can run up mountains and swim through oceans.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too. It's beautiful.
So good. Jaden, thank you so much
Oh,
for being
no.
on the podcast. I'm so glad that you were here.
Yeah.
You're
Me too.
welcome. I love this too. This just gives me so much energy and it's really it feels so good in my body to reconnect with you and talk to you about this. Like you are absolutely glowing and it's so
Thank you.
beautiful that you guys are doing a podcast together. I think that mother-daughter connection that is a whole other topic when I talk about the menstrual cycle and feminine energy and empowerment is that mother-daughter connection
Mm.
and how much wisdom is shared between the two. And so hearing that you guys have a podcast together honestly makes me so, so happy. And you guys are sharing so many beautiful, authentic lessons and experiences. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Well, it's very
thank
sweet.
you.
It was so nice to meet you too.
Yeah, you as well.
Also,
We'll
the
have to do this
movie
again.
is She's the
Yeah.
Man. She's the
Yes,
Man.
she's a man.
The man. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How could I forget?
Sorry, I just had to
Yes.
share that because I knew
No,
it was
thank
going to
you.
bother you.
Yeah, thank you. And like one last thing that I really want to highlight with the importance of this conversation and this work is we often talk about the negative things around our cycle and the really uncomfortable symptoms that we experience. But there's a whole other side of this conversation that we haven't even tapped into today of
Yeah.
the strengths and
Yeah.
the beautiful things that we experience at each different phase of our cycle that men don't get.
Mhm.
And so when we learn how to live in sync with our cycle, we learn to optimize our life because we have these different strengths
Yeah.
and to learn and to tap into that. And that's the most important, I think, topic with this of female empowerment is
Yeah.
we're so lucky to be female and to be cyclical and to have a period. It's a sign of health. It's a sign of vitality. And so the more we can kind of balance those hormones, the more that we get to live into those really beautiful strengths that we have.
Yeah. That was good. I'm glad I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you.
guys. Have a beautiful
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You
And
too.
good morning. Yeah. Isn't
Yeah.
it morning
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
early morning. Yeah. Have a
Yeah.
good day.
Have a
It's
good
like your
day.
whole
Yeah.
day is ahead of you
I
now.
will. This is the best way to start it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Much
Jaden.
love.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.